All right, we're back, but this time there's no new episode of Ahsoka. It's kind of weird having a Tuesday without like anything to really go over and do. But now that the entire series is over, we have 8 entire episodes of Ahsoka to review. We're going to go over the entire series and kind of look back and give our overall opinions and reviews of the entire series as a whole. So all that and more here on Chatooine. Now, it's also probably the last time we're going to be using that intro because now that we don't have Ahsoka to go over,
Hey,
we don't have to use that intro.
there'll be a season 2, hopefully.
And it's funny.
We got to make an Acolyte one because that's what's coming next.
Yeah.
Oh,
God.
isn't Skeleton Crew coming next?
I think Skeleton
is it
Crew or
Skeleton
Bad
Crew?
Batch will be
Yeah.
next.
There's
Someone told me that Bad Batch is releasing in March of next year, which is what they've done. I think the past couple times they've done Bad Batch, right? It was like a February, March release.
Yeah, I think February.
I never watched season 2. of Bad
I
Batch.
have not seen a single episode either.
Didn't Bad Batch, wasn't it didn't they do it on the whole May the 4th thing? Or was that the first season?
That was the first season.
First season? Okay.
No. Oh yeah, you're right, because they did the 2-episode premiere and like one of them was like an hour long. The only good thing about that when that was coming out is that that's like 16 episodes. So it's like 3 to 4 months of shows that we could just do constantly every week.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
They weren't
that first episode that got you all excited for nothing because it's like it picks up literally a second after Order 66, right? And you're like, oh, here we go, and then it goes into this whole fucking fuck that kid.
That's a rant for another time. Rant for another
time. But actually, since you did bring up like season 2 of Ahsoka, it's kind of curious, right, that they haven't really confirmed that. According to like Lucasfilm and Deadline and everything, they were saying that it's like under talks right now.
The actors' strike, from my understanding, is making things very difficult for studios to publicly release in terms of confirmation. That's what I've heard is the reason why they haven't. It's because the actors' strike are still going on.
I believe it.
That's so wild to me.
I know. Palpamus, you might be more familiar with this than I am. Because like I know the actors were like meeting today with the studios. Did anything happen, or is it still?
I haven't talked to anyone. I have no idea. I don't think so. I was online a lot today. I didn't see anything. We probably won't find out till Friday usually. And yeah.
Weren't.
And I know it's a diverting topic. With Marvel, but I don't know. I mean, we know this is not initially happening in Star Wars because at least with the Mandoverse, the Favreau seems to have like a he has storyboards and Filoni work on telling this whole story and how things work. But that thing that came out in that Hollywood Reporter article about how the Marvel shows, they didn't commission pilots, they just shot entire seasons of TV on the fly. They didn't hire showrunners, and on the film executives to run the series, and relied on post-production and reshoots to fix what wasn't working. Now we know why they suck so bad. And but I don't think that was happening with the Star Wars. I mean, some Boba Fett
Andor had pretty hellish production, despite how great the show is. The production
and Andor, don't forget, was almost canceled. They got rid of the original writers for Andor and brought in Tony Gilroy yet again to like save the production. So I mean, but Lucasfilm
with Star Wars, it felt like they couldn't settle on a showrunner rather than not hire.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's the same thing, but similar issues have coexisted with Star Wars and Lucasfilm as they are with Marvel. I'm surprised they flat out released what's going on, but to me it kind of sounded like a whole we weren't really trying before, sorry, but we're gonna do better from now on. Hey, maybe they will. Maybe this is a Daredevil they're redoing. Maybe it'll be great.
By the way, guys, tweet from the Hollywood Handle: today's meeting between SAG-AFTRA and the AMPTP reportedly did not go well. So
that's why you're not going to hear anything till Friday, because that means last day for the stock market of the week. I was thinking that if they didn't release anything today, they're not going to release it tomorrow. They're going to release it on Friday afternoon, right before the market closes.
So looks like a little while for any more confirmation on the future of Star Wars.
Yeah, I was talking, I was thinking, I don't know if I brought this up to you guys, that we could get a 2025 release date for this Rey Jedi Order movie if Avatar, the next Avatar movie, is moved, because the report is they're going to start filming in spring of next year, and that gives them well enough time.
You forgot the formula. Okay. If they confirm it, it's not happening.
I forgot about that.
They confirmed.
Yeah, you're right.
No, I'm optimistic.
That's why Ahsoka season 2 is happening, because they haven't confirmed it. We know it's happening. That's gonna happen. They confirm it. It's fuck it.
Sure hope
it's another
so.
thing in a trash bin.
So, you guys, we can give our retrospectives on Ahsoka. I know we've been kind of, when we do the episodes, we go around, give our initial thoughts, and then we go more in depth. I guess we can do that. If any of our thoughts have changed in the past week on the series,
I will preface this with saying, unlike some people here, I did not watch the whole fucking thing over again. I do not do that. I do not watch TV shows over. I don't. Movies I can. I do not watch TV shows over. I watch it. That's it. I don't do rewatches of TV shows. So,
well, you've thought about the show more since the past week, have you?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm obviously, yeah, but I didn't. Yeah, but I don't do the whole rewatch. I can't do that. I don't know how people.
I mean, these Star Wars shows are basically just movies cut up into 8 parts.
Yeah, that's the thing that Marvel talked about, how they're like, oh, this needs to be a TV show, not a movie split up, you know. But Goldman, have your thoughts changed at all since last week?
All right, I'll go first. I was expecting our usual.
Well, I did.
Clockwise.
I thought Lunga had already.
Well, Star Wars only is too busy eating dinner, so
he's asleep or eating. He's
all right, I'll go. So Ahsoka 1 week later. The more I thought about it, the more I personally enjoyed it as a Star Wars fan. But I think a lot of the issues grew larger, and the ending was fairly anticlimactic for now. And I know this is a sentiment we shared last week. We'll really just have to wait until season 2 to see how they continue the story and what they want to do with the direction of the Mandoverse, with Thrawn, with these characters, what they do with Peridia. And we'll see if Skeleton Crew ties in with Ahsoka. So I think a large part of it depends on the future. But right now, it was good to me, but had a lot of glaring problems that we can dive deeper into.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. The ending is one of those. I mean, I would consider the Mandalorian season 1 ending to be anticlimactic. Not to the extent of this, not to the extent of this, because this brought up so many questions and loose threads and stuff. Ahsoka for me brought me back to the sequel trilogy days, where I mean, at least in this term, I was hyped every week. I say in my review that I'm working on that it was nice to finally get time on a Tuesday night to just sit down, unwind, and enjoy some Star Wars. You know, with, I hate to get real negative, but with things like Book of Boba, Mando 3, even Obi-Wan Kenobi, it felt like I was more frustrated as a fan than I had passion in with watching whatever I was watching at that time. And it seemed like it's been a long while since I've gotten that passion and spark back when it comes to Star Wars. Andor is phenomenal and arguably the best written thing Disney has done with Star Wars. And as great as it is, it didn't give me that sort of mysticality feeling and that Star Wars magic that Ahsoka gave me. That said, the show is not short of flaws. It's got plenty of faults in it. I do think the good heavily outweighs the bad. I mean, you've got these intriguing villains, in my opinion, a great storyline that's just not perfectly executed, fantastic heroes, and I love the growth between Sabine and Ahsoka. I thought that was really, really well done, and I like that the foundation is Ahsoka and Sabine, and the result of her arc is with Ezra. I didn't think they could. I mean, they did that almost perfectly. I thought it was great. I really, really hope there's a season 2, and I'm pretty sure there will be one. And I hope these answers come with us in the next season.
I'm a huge fan of long form storytelling. I've always liked long form storytelling. That's why my D&D campaigns have been going on for 3 years, and they're not even halfway through. I like long form. As long as they pick up the threads that y'all mentioned, okay? They can't just leave these threads hanging, and if they don't do that immediately, because if I get to the middle or second half of season 2 and some of these threads are not touched, I'm like, okay, well, what the fuck? Would you maybe wait like later, or you're not even gonna pick them up? So I can usually figure that out pretty early on into the next season, but I'm okay with it as long as, and from the feel I have after digesting this entire season and the way they ended it, I feel that these are important plot points for everything that's going forward. Okay, with season 2, with the movie, you mentioned Skeleton Crew. I know there's a whole because they're supposed to be lost, aren't they?
They say
like Galactica thing.
we can talk about that. I'm sure we'll talk about that in a little news section.
So
yeah,
maybe they're in this part of the galaxy. Maybe they got
They did say a lost, dangerous
or,
galaxy they're lost in. Yeah,
lost in space, right?
Mhm.
And so, but I saw again, I hate Bad Batch because it's fuck that kid. Now it's gonna be fuck these kids. It's gonna be a bunch of kids and one adult. I don't know how well that's going to handle it. Now, if they're like a Jedi and a bunch of Padawans, maybe that I could deal with. But
have you seen the leaked images of concept art that got shown at Celebration?
No,
they're kids.
No. I don't do the leak stuff. I know they're kids, but
like 14 years old. They said Stranger Things in space.
What kind of kids? If they're fucking Broom Boy kids, I don't give a fuck. Okay.
I hope it is
Broom Boy.
I hope
it's if it's like the Ninth Jedi and he's like aspiring Force users, just that could be interesting. But yeah, back to Ahsoka. So I'm not too worried about that. So the ending didn't bother me. For me, and this is the thing that I like when people were running around saying it wasn't a cliffhanger. I hate that because that's an outright lie. You may not like the cliffhanger. The cliffhanger may not be suspenseful enough for you. You may have wanted a little bit more before to the cliffhanger. That's fine. Those are all legitimate arguments. But to say it's not a cliffhanger is an outright lie. I just be honest with your subjectivity. That's all I ask when people say this shit. But I was happy with what we got. Balin standing on that thing, tying into the Mortis gods and what's coming up next. That's an awesome cliffhanger to me. I think that's fucking great. Ahsoka and Sabine being trapped out here. I think that's great. Thrawn just arriving, going to Dathomir. Ooh, what is he doing at Dathomir? What's happening there? That's good for me. And we had all the arguments about what is it leading into? Which they should have told us more. Thrawn just arrived. There's nobody there. And how did Ezra get there? These are all nitpicks. And I agree on a lot of those things. But none of those little nitpicks ruined the show for me. They didn't stop my enjoyment of it. We get overly critical, and there's people in the comments, they're like, oh, you guys are overly critical. It's like, that's what the fucking show. That's what we're here for. We're here to break it down. That's the whole point. Not just to say, I loved it. Oh, did you love it? Yeah, I loved it. Oh, that was great. Yeah, it was great. Oh, that's not what we're here for. We're here to dissect it, right? That's what it's for. But I was happy. I was overall happy with it, other than the little nitpicks. But none of those, like I said, destroyed my enjoyment of the show. And some of them may change, just like I said about episode, when we get to season 2.
One thing I want to touch on is a lot of the plot points were clearly unresolved, intentionally, that is. But one thing that does appear to be resolved as of for now was Ahsoka's arc, with her being a more appreciative and supportive master to Sabine. What did you guys think about the story they try to tell with Sabine and Ahsoka in this season? Because sure, they're going to do more with the two characters going forward, but this story point with Ahsoka is concluded for now, and we'll see what they do.
Oh, you mean the one where they came out and told us that Anakin being at the end was to let us know Ahsoka's arrived where she needs to be? Like, we didn't fucking know that already? We need
some people didn't know. Yeah,
enough talk. Enough talk, Lunga.
We knew that.
Star Wars only. You here yet?
No.
Hey,
Lunga, I will say, though, you got to give me props. I went through my recap without mentioning Anakin one time, okay? My love for the show is outside my love for Anakin Skywalker, all right?
You're saving it. If Anakin was not in this, Goldman, back me up. If Anakin was not in this, you would have rated the show a 5. I guarantee you.
That is so cap. That is...
I think take whatever Palpatine has now and like subtract it by 1.5. I think that would be a score.
It's a 7. You did a 7, right? Did you say a 7?
7.5.
Okay, so he'd give it a 6. He'd give it a 6.
Even then, I don't know. I love the show way outside of Anakin. Episode 5 could have not happened, and she goes through her arc of becoming that Ahsoka the White, the more lightened version without Anakin, and I still would have think this was a pretty damn good Star Wars show. Just saying.
So anyway, we'll start with you, Palpatine. What were your thoughts on Ahsoka's arc and Sabine's arc, and do you think that was well conveyed, or do you think they could have done better?
Well, now I have to bring up Anakin because he's kind of
He's
middle
a big
point
part of the
for
story.
that. What I really like about it is Anakin is there to bring Ahsoka to the light, and when Ahsoka gets to the light, right, now she is a way better master to Sabine, whereas before she was like, she doesn't dislike Sabine. I'm not saying that, but she didn't really feel like she wanted to even train her in the first place, but she kind of felt forced into it. Whereas now, she has hope and trust in Sabine, and Sabine makes mistakes, and I feel like old Ahsoka would have been really pissed off at that and really frustrated. Whereas she comes here and she says, "You did what you felt you had to do, and that's okay. We go from here." I thought the arcs were fine. I didn't think they were anything spectacular. I still say it is kind of silly going from barely being able to force, a lightsaber hilt to being able to full on push Ezra. But as we said before, that's a complete nitpick. That doesn't hurt the story. That didn't make me be like, oh, this sucks now. She's a Mary Sue OP woman, I thought it was good. I like their arcs a lot.
All right. Thoughts, Lunga?
Okay. I mean, for me, it's a positive thing because at the start of this, I was a big, not a fan of the whole Sabine being force sensitive and this revolving around that, because they took this tiny little thread. What was it? A half of an episode from one season of Rebels. I mean, all in all, Kanan doing stuff with her, what did it add up to? Maybe like 5 minutes of a show or something like that.
That wasn't even really about the Force, though. It was about her being a potential leader to Mandalorians. So
yeah, but there was still some training and there was some talk about her having skill, and Kanan did that very generic. Everybody has the Force. Well, yeah, they literally told us that in the original trilogy. It's in everybody. Doesn't mean everybody can use it though. Those are two different things. So I wasn't that much of a fan of that to begin with. And I said, we'll see, will it grow on me? Will they convince me to like it? And I'm not going to say it convinced me to like it, but it did make me able to be, it was palatable, right? It wasn't making me want to vomit. It was palatable. And I said that from the beginning, and I knew that's what it was, because you mentioned, you did a tweet where it's like in Rebels, did Ahsoka and Sabine like never had any dialogue?
They never had a conversation with each other. Yeah. They were in the room with each other a few times, but they never spoke to each other.
Right. So if they were going to use this, they're like, okay, how are we going to tie this in? So we got to make up this whole story. Okay, over the last 10 years, we didn't see any Rebels. Over the last 10 years, this stuff happened. And that's how we're going to use, it's a foil for their relationship. Right, because what other reason would Ahsoka have anything to have any relationship with Sabine for? That is literally the only thing, especially with how single-minded Ahsoka is with a lot of things. Mm-hmm. So I didn't like the fact that they came up with it as this kind of jackknife foil just to make up a story element. But they made it work, right? I liked, and maybe it was just the actresses. Okay, maybe it was just Rosario Dawson and oh my god, why is your name escaping me?
Natasha Bordizzo.
Yes, Natasha. Maybe it was just, the way those two acted, that it felt natural. You know what I mean? So it didn't bother me. And then by the end, it was like, okay, this is the story, right? And we ended Ahsoka's arc. Sabine's, they ended the arc of what she had happening in that season, right? But there's still more, right? She's going to train now. She just figured out how to use the Force, and now she's going to be training with Ahsoka. They're going to be on this planet together. So she's going to grow into some kind of Tar Vizsla, I guess, is what's going to end up happening, because she's literally the first one since Tar Vizsla, if you think about it. There's no one
that we know of, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, unless you count Grogu, but that doesn't fucking count. Sorry.
That's what I thought they were going for with that, but apparently not.
Yeah. Well, maybe in about 100 years he can be.
Yeah, whatever. Ray will train. Yeah.
We're
on the same page.
So it grew on me, and they wrote it well. Their relationship.
Yeah, it was fun.
Some of the dialogue was a little clunky with them, but overall it was okay. So it didn't leave me, like I said, it was palatable. It's not my favorite part of the whole thing, but it didn't make me say fuck this shit. So it was okay.
But make some great points, Lunga. My perspective on that part of the story with the season, one thing that really frustrates me, by the way, is when people say the season had no story. Like, sure, you could not like Ahsoka's arc or whatever. You could thought it was poorly portrayed. But that was the story of the season. Like Ahsoka's arc with Sabine. And people are like, oh, nothing, there was no point to it because Ahsoka and Sabine just switched places with Thrawn and Ezra. Like, there's more to story than just the events that happened. It's about the
It's the
themes and
same
the
thing.
lessons.
It's the same thing I mentioned about the cliffhanger. What the people have this habit of, if they just because they don't like something, they want they want their displeasure to be objective, not subjective, right? They want it to be like, oh, if I don't like it, it's gotta be because they fucked up. They did something just completely wrong that everybody's gonna agree with me. And if you don't, you're just a shill. And that's so they got to make it objective. And it's like, you're right. There is a story. You cannot like the story. You can sit here and say this story freaking sucked. That's fine.
Yeah, you can say there's plot holes in it or whatever. There's still a clear story there.
What's the story? So one thing that now that I've thought about the series a week later and I've had the whole picture in mind as opposed to individual episodes, what I've come to the conclusion about is when I look at the story they told with Ahsoka and Sabine, I really like it. I like Ahsoka learning to become more of a master, especially since we've seen her so much of her story has been when she was young and her relationship with Anakin. So now being a master and struggling with that at first and growing into that role was something I really appreciated. So I liked the big picture of the story, but the way Dave Filoni executed it, especially early on in the season, was what frustrated me the most. And I saw someone describe it as mystery box style character development, and I completely agree with that description. Like the sequels had, like J.J. Abrams had like mystery box plot points. Dave did mystery box character points, where when the series began, like we were assuming, why was Ahsoka like this? Why is she not the usual person she is? Why does she seem so uncompassionate, if that's a word?
Stern.
Stern, sure. And we were speculating, it's because she's been through some stuff. She saw Vader, Anakin turn the dark side. Kind of were just guessing. And then it wasn't until the 5th episode where we're like, it's because, Ahsoka has so much leftover feelings from Anakin and whatnot. And then we're like, why didn't Sabine and Ahsoka work out? Like, how did they have a falling out? Because as we spoke about before, Sabine and Ahsoka didn't have a pre-existing relationship. So to begin this show with them having a falling out, we had to put pieces together. And it wasn't really until the last episode of the season where Hu Yang is like, Ahsoka feared Sabine was wanting to become a Jedi for the wrong reasons, and that it had to do with the death of her family on Mandalore, and that's what would motivate her. And Ahsoka didn't like that. And it's like, I love that concept. I love that idea, but why did you explain that in the last episode of the season? They didn't need to explain it in the first, but I think leaving so many questions as to why your characters are in a flawed state is not a great narrative choice. So that's how I felt about that part of the arc.
I push back on a little on that, saying people are like, this is not the Ahsoka we know, because they're thinking of Clone Wars Ahsoka, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Rebels, I mean, if you think about Rebels, they kind of made everybody kind of nice. That's just the way Rebels did it. They were just all these nice people.
Kind of.
So they made Ahsoka kind of just be an older version of what she was in the Clone Wars.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, we said the novels don't count and stuff, a lot of stuff, but even if you read just the Ahsoka novel and stuff, you could see the hardness forming in that novel. So seeing her this way wasn't a surprise to me. Knowing when she saw Anakin and the whole Darth Vader thing, and which was in Rebels, and how it how it conflicted her, and how it threw everything she ever knew into doubt, because that was the only thing she had to hold on to, right, when she left. What was Anakin, and that threw everything into doubt. So I can see how all of that in the intervening 10 years could turn someone to stone, to really cold like that, and I could see it. So that didn't surprise me.
I think you make good points, but what surprised me is not even so much that sternness or coldness, but at points she was frankly just mean to Sabine. Like when I think it was in the 2nd episode, Sabine's like on the chair, and Ahsoka's like, we got to go to Corellia, and Sabine's like, okay, I'm coming too, and she's like, no, you stay here, you've done enough. Like there was just frankly moments where Sabine was a jerk, or Ahsoka was a jerk. And I know you think that's
Anakin
her being hardened.
Was not nice to Ahsoka.
I know he did not talk to her like that. No, he did not. No, he did not.
Yes, he did.
No,
he did. And then later he would say snips and everything was fine. He was. I feel like Anakin always, he was mean.
Anakin always tried to have a lesson behind it. At least he always had Ahsoka's best interest at heart. I really thought Ahsoka didn't care for Sabine anymore. Like it was even implied that if Ahsoka could open the map, she would have never gone to Sabine in the first place. So I think that's where the difference is with Anakin.
I felt disappointment. I felt disappointment. Not that she didn't care. I felt disappointment, and it was disappointment that she felt there was nothing she could do, that only Sabine could do it, and she didn't feel Sabine was ever going to do it, and that's what I felt.
Interesting points.
It's kind of weird without Only right now. He's usually kind of leader in all of this.
He's
fucking talk, Palpamemes. Me and fucking.
I am listening to your guys' conversation.
You're waiting until we start talking about Anakin. I understand.
It's on my mind. What can I say? What can I say? I saw a comment that was basically like.
Let's move on to the antagonists. Okay, let's talk about Baylan and Shin.
Sure.
Talk about Baylan and Shin.
Yeah, my headphones are still fucked up. So like I can hear y'all, but I can't talk and hear you through my my audio or anything like that. So I'd have to listen to you guys on the fucking phone and everything. So, but I am here. I'm listening. I just,
chime in only. What?
Yeah, you and the other 45 people in the chat. That. Oh, he
can't hear. He's delayed. He's delayed from his phone.
Right.
Yeah.
Why don't you just open the stream?
This back, so it's mad weird for me. My headphones are at 10%. I'm sorry. I'm trying to charge them. I will say, because I can't hear you guys feedback, so I get to say things and not give a fuck what anyone's opinion is at the moment, and not feel like my member Barry's criticism is ever going to be refuted with Lunga. Thank God. But I watched the entire series the other night. I kid you not. I did 1 through 8 in one sitting, and it's weird to me that the series has extremely high highs. I think episodes 4, I think it's episode 6 where they finally go to Peridia, and then maybe that's it. Because episode 8 isn't bad either. I think episode 8 is a decent ending, but as we said last week, there's some things where you're like, okay, there's small things I don't really like about how they concluded the series, or at least this first season. But overall, like looking at the first 8 episodes, there's a lot of them that I think are just kind of meh. The first 3 episodes,
you're breaking my heart.
I can't even hear that, so I have no idea what she said. Nothing but nostalgia right there. But still, those first 3 episodes I think were really slow. Episodes 4 and 6 are like peak Star Wars, peak storytelling in general. And I think overall for the series, I find it kind of inconsistent. I do like what you guys were saying about like Ahsoka and Sabine, but I share Goldman's sentiment of like, it's annoying that we have to find out in episode 8 about what had happened there, because the whole premise of their relationship from the start is that they don't kind of like each other, it seems. And like Goldman was saying, like Ahsoka's kind of rude. Like Sabine was like, "Oh, I can help out," and Ahsoka's like, "No, you've done enough." I'm like, "God damn, bitch, calm the fuck down." She was just trying to help out, There's things like that where it's like this feels a little inconsistent with these characters, because we have no frame of reference for their backstory at all. And that's where it gets a little weird, with these 2 characters being the central characters that we follow. And I'd also say that for Ahsoka being the lead, there's really only a couple parts of the series, other than episode 5, that really focuses on her as a character. The series is mostly about Sabine and her relationship with Ahsoka. And I think this series or this show might have been better off just doing a sequel to Star Wars Rebels, not being titled Ahsoka, and kind of following that path, because we have so many characters in this. It's kind of like the Book of Boba Fett, where you're like, are we really here for Boba Fett, or are we here for someone else?
Don't make that comparison. Don't make that. Okay, no. Okay, you're gonna hear this on replay. Go ahead. Your delay. Don't fucking compare it to Book of Boba Fett, goddamn. Okay, because that was a chopped up piece of shit. Where it's like, what are we gonna do with these episodes? People ain't watching. Let's throw Mando in here. Poof, let's throw episode 1. What are we gonna do for episode 1 of season 3? We'll figure it out. Don't worry about it. Poof, let's throw it in there. So they just threw it in there, and it didn't really. So no, that is a completely
agreed
analogy. It doesn't fit. Yes, is the stuff. Some of the stuff he said, sure, yeah, I get it, but I almost think like the way he's saying it, more him than you, Goldman. But it's like, if I feel like you're the kind of people that are in a line at a grocery store and you see a snippet of a conversation between a couple or a parent and a kid, and you're like, man, that guy's a fucking asshole, and you don't know everything else around it. You just judge the judgment. It's like feels like that.
I
That's
don't
what's
need
about
to know
Ahsoka.
one.
I think Ahsoka hates Sabine. It's like, how about watch the fucking series and maybe you'll figure out why she's this way. That's what I don't understand. Just why do you need it immediately?
The backstory. This isn't some random couple. I've seen Ahsoka and Sabine not interact in Rebels like throughout the entire series, and then you come
and they
to
continue
the show.
No, but for me, Lunga, it wasn't told in the beginning. It's that it was told at the end. And I just feel like having us speculate about why these characters are like this, why they're flawed. It just, I don't see the narrative benefit into having us wait to tell us why these characters are like this.
Can we make the comparison to Luke in The Last Jedi where
No.
in episode 8, hold on, you kind of, as an audience member, have to fill in the holes that are at place in that moment. You kind of have to be like, okay, why is he this way? The movie gives us some, excerpts on it and everything. Is it kind of like that where you kind of have to go, okay, we've never seen these guys talk before?
I don't think so. I think it's a little different. I understand though, like the premise of where we're picking up in the story of like, okay, we have to fill in the gaps of what happened and everything. But even with the first episode, it ended the same way the animated series ended with like Ahsoka going up to Sabine. It's stuff like that that's narratively like, what are we doing here? Is this the same scene? Is it not? Why are they repeating the same scene if it's not the same scene from the animated series? Like stuff like that is where this series, I think, is weird when it comes to the writing and how they're portraying the story and trying to make us fill in what has happened in the past. And normally it's Dave Filoni doing it with other people's work. He's doing it with his own work now. His own series he's redoing in a way. It's very odd.
Retcons continue.
It's like Filoniverse could use its own animated show now, which is what Filoni's been doing for the movies.
Do you guys think that this show could have benefited from an extra episode or two? Do you think that's one of the problems, that there was so much to do? The only episode I would say that was filler is episode 3.
I'm always a fan of saying, because it's like these Marvel Star Wars shows, they're like 6-8 episodes, right? And where it's like you watch other TV shows, they have 12, 14, episodes.
I mean, Andor.
And Game of Thrones, and Game of Thrones was long in the first season or two, and then they can make them shorter and shorter and shorter every season.
And it got worse and worse.
But to be fair, Game of Thrones were hour-long episodes, so I mean they were hefty. So I'm usually a fan of that. However, in this, I don't think we needed more episodes. I think the time they had could have been better served with some stuff rather than more episodes. We could have spent a little bit more time on certain things here and there and not drag out the same thing. Like the Sabine Ezra thing, right? It's like it went on for so long of her not telling him anything.
It got frustrating.
She never told him any of that stuff. There was no and I wouldn't have a complaint if they didn't build that tension in each conversation.
And I think that's another thread we're not going to get is Ezra, right? It almost seemed like his 10 years on this planet, on Peredia, are unimportant. They don't matter. He was just hanging out with the crab people. That's all. That's it. There's nothing else to know, guys.
Yeah.
He was just hanging out with the crab people. That's it. And he's Ezra, Mr. Positivity, always happy, even living here for 10 years. Maybe that's what they're trying to get across. Look, he's the same old Ezra, that even with this challenge of being stranded here for 10 years, he still has the same outlook on life, and he's still the same way. And maybe that's the lesson we're supposed to learn, but it's like...
Well, you bring that, you make him change a little bit, then you have the same problem we're just talking about with Sabine and Ahsoka, where we don't know exactly what happened.
Well,
but the difference
instead of 2 episodes of him saying, "So what happened?" That's complicated. Well, it's complicated. Well, you know what? Let me tell you what happened to me. You could have told the story there at least.
Papa memes. Where I'd push back with you is that Ezra is not the main character of the show, and him being gone for so long and then not showing up in episode 6 and say he was different, that would be a lot more interesting because there's intrigue based off of Ezra's more of a plot point than an actual character in the series.
Right.
So mystery as to what happened to him is different than beginning the series with our main characters being flawed for unknown reasons. I think that's how I see it.
Totally fair.
But here's the thing, again, it's a foil, right? This is where a foil is good, okay? Showing what happened to him, how he's different or what he went to, that influences how Sabine looks at things, okay? And that could change her trajectory of certain things, or open up certain avenues for things to happen with her, or dialogue to happen with her. So it's not just I want to know what happened to Ezra when he's not the main character. It's those I do want to know, but that also plays into with Sabine. But it just seems like they just completely ignore it just to have this constant conversation of her not telling him anything.
Well, and don't forget
like,
Hera in the New Republic as well. That was something that kind of wasted the show in a way. Like that plot and that story wasn't really all that relevant at the end of everything. And that's why I was kind of talking about seasons or episodes 1 and 2 of like that was really heavy in those first 2 episodes. And then you have them go into like that Imperial like shipyard and everything. And there's those people who are like, oh, for the Empire. All that stuff, not only looking back when I rewatched it, was it kind of corny. It really didn't amount to anything at all. And that's one of those things with the show that Lunga was talking about of like should have used the time that it had smarter. They shouldn't have even had that as a plot throughout the entire series.
But you
they
know what that is, right?
Scene. What is it? Dave Filoni's writing? Because that's what I think it is.
No, that the stuff that was going on there with them and the stuff we've seen in Mando season 3, that's all the threads of Rangers New Republics that didn't happen.
Oh yeah, well,
I was going to bring that
up.
I
believe
that.
For
whatever their plan is, they still need that story, right? And so they're just putting it in here and there, so it has all these parts, and then when you get later on, it's like, oh, okay, that's where this all fits together, you know.
But doesn't it make it seem like if they had done Rangers of the New Republic, it wouldn't have been like that good? Because let's be honest, we all felt like Cara Dune or Gina Carano was going to be the leader, but then you have the Carson guy, and now Zeb, and they're doing what they've been like that. Remember that one episode in Mandalorian where he wasn't even in it the whole time? He was the doctor. Yeah, and I think what they had stemmed off, what like you were saying, whatever plot points they had for that series, them trying to integrate that into Mando season 3, Ahsoka, Book of Boba, it doesn't work. It has not worked at all. And this show specifically was like a big thing of like it just was not well written.
I somewhat agree and somewhat disagree. I did, looking back on it, I did find a lot of the New Republic stuff to be unimportant because it didn't really amount to anything in this season. But again, it's one of those things where it's probably gonna be relevant in the future. We're probably gonna see New Republic senators and people die from Thrawn's hand. That's why I know we had this debate last week where I think if there was an ending of this season where Thrawn had an attack on the New Republic and it worked, it wouldn't just be because it would be a more climactic way to end Thrawn's story. It would have some impact on that New Republic story as well. Because we saw they're acting like idiots, and if Thrawn returned and destroyed a fair amount of their ships, then its actions having consequences, and that's always important, I feel. So if we saw the New Republic being inept, which we did, and then at the end they had to pay the price for it, I think that would be more justice would kind of feel served to the New Republic, and that's why I would have preferred an ending like that. And then Hera's whole story with Hera would have been proven right, which is always something we as an audience want to see, is characters being proven right that we are rooting for.
Here's the thing. We said it, like we were trying to talk about it, like in Star Wars only, and like would it be interesting at all? It probably wouldn't have, right? Because even Cara Dune, I don't think she would have been able to carry that show, and it wasn't even the character. They were trying to think Gina Carano because people loved her so much that was going to be able to carry a show. And it's like we need characters, right? I don't care how good the actor is. The character's got to be worth my while. And it's funny even to say that because Gina Carano was never that good. People.
Well, that's what frustrates
me.
Hang on.
Everyone liked her. No, everyone liked her when it came out. All right, I know.
I like her, but that doesn't mean she's a great actress.
No, you're not. I'm not disagreeing with you. She's not a great actress. But when she first came out, everyone liked her because she came from MMA and everything. She had a long reputation and whatnot, and she genuinely got along with everybody and was a cool character. Everyone liked Cara Dune except for the Fandom Menace people when that character came out. And then the second she got fired, then everybody switched gears. People who liked her were, and people who had like pictures with her at Comic-Con and all that stuff were like, oh, this freaking lady is transphobic and all that shit. It's funny how the wheels turn in those kind of situations. Because
but the point I'm saying is her as an actress and the character of Cara Dune, they were nice side characters. She was a side character, right? She was a supporting character. She was never going to be able to carry a show. Now, we brought up Hera. Hera, if you had an Rangers New Republic and she was the lead, that could work.
No,
Yeah.
no, it would not. No, it would not.
I'd buy it.
Her arc in this Ahsoka series, and also the way she looks, her makeup. I mean, it's not the most appealing looking character. I think
You want her to be so sexy? Like, what's up?
No, I don't want to be
Hold
sexy.
on,
I just
hold
want her
on.
context and not look
Don't
like she's
compare-
from fucking sci-fi.
Don't compare it as part of the story, which we all kind of agree was kind of off being in here, as it is its own story. If she was doing her own story, it's a whole different feel. It's not part of Ahsoka, right? It's a different
there's
feel.
no way.
So
First of all, her being like the lead of that series, that would not have done well. Okay, I mean, Andor getting his own series was well, what the hell are you doing? But at least he was in live action. This would be a animated character to live action in a series that not a lot of people watch, not a lot of people cared for, other than people on Twitter.
It wouldn't need to be titled Syndulla, a Star Wars story. It could be Rangers of the New Republic, and she's just the main character.
do we gotta go
But
back
that's
to
what I was
Boba
gonna
Fett again?
say.
Boba
The
Fett was in
import-
5 fucking minutes in the original trilogy. Do we really gotta go back
Yeah,
to
but
Boba
Boba
Fett
Fett's
again?
cool. Are you going to tell me Harrow's cool?
Oh, it's
Come
because
on.
he's a man. It's because Boba Fett is a man.
Here we go.
He's
Oh,
Darth
wait,
Vader.
wait.
Here we
Don't
go.
let them
It's-
win.
Wait, hang on. The original idea for this show was supposed to be about like a Cara Dune and Bo-Katan, and we saw how Bo-Katan was.
You don't know
in
that.
season 3 of the main. Well, that was the rumors and talks on the block. Okay, I mean, some of these people
You're-
are accurate every now and then.
You're,
But I'm saying that if it was Bo-Katan and Cara Dune, that would have done better.
I'd agree. I struggle to see Cara Dune being able to carry her own show more so because of Gina Carano rather than the actual character. Not because of the controversial stuff, but just Cara Dune doesn't demand much from an acting perspective. So I don't know how she'd be able to emotionally carry her own show. But I think
That's
just
true.
because certain plot points in certain characters didn't work in their own show, that doesn't mean it could have worked with that character. Listen, you guys know since we began the Chatooine show, I do not like Boba Fett. I don't hate him. I just don't find him an interesting character at all. They could have made the Book of Boba Fett a good show. There is a version out there in alternate history where they told a story with Boba Fett and it was great. So I disagree with the premise that like just because Hera's story was interesting here, that it couldn't have been interesting elsewhere.
The interesting
that
part
doesn't make any
of the
sense.
Rangers
and
show.
she was, other than Kanan, she was my favorite character in Rebels because I hated Ezra, right? I never
loved all the
cared about
characters,
fucking Ezra. Okay, Hera. I mean, people get you kind of start out. Well, at least Boba Fett was in live action. Come on, you.
No,
And again, I am not the Rebels fan. That's Goldman, right? I'm not like the Rebels fanboy. Okay, but I liked it, and especially certain characters, even though I hated Ezra. You're discounting the fan base that Hera has, and arguably, and Andor is a really great show that we all kind of agree on. Arguably, Hera is more well known and loved than Andor ever was.
I'd agree, especially
Okay,
among Star Wars
so-
fans.
Yeah. So if Andor can do it, you can do it with
Okay,
Hera.
but there's still a
especially
difference
she
between
has a
though,
built-in
like
fan base.
Hera and Boba, because Boba was huge.
Well, we know why they did it
Again,
marketing wise, but that
you
doesn't
brought up-
impact the
but you brought up
story.
Bo-Katan. You brought up Bo-Katan. Oh, that would have been better. Bo-Katan had less screen time than Hera. Okay, Hera was in Rebels obviously all the time. Okay, Bo-Katan was just in some Clone Wars, some Rebels. That's it. It's not like she was like around all the time. And I think her if she was in Rangers is a horrible idea. Her whole story has always been wrapped up with Mandalore, the leadership of Mandalore, and everything involving her sister and ruling Mandalore. Her just suddenly becoming like this quasi Mando, like Mando is, and just becoming a ranger and flying around with Cara Dune, fighting things, and she's not caring about Mandalore. That is the worst idea in the history. It makes no fucking sense, and that would have been horrible. That's another issue of, if I get to see her, I'm happy. No.
The premise of the New Republic show isn't about who or what character is going to lead it, but the premise of the New Republic themselves. It could have been Cara Dune, it could have been Hera, it could have been freaking Katan. Boba Fett could have come back, it could have been Boba Fett doing political stuff. That's why if this is the reason why they canceled that show is because of Cara Dune, that frustrates me to no end, because she's not the important part about the show. She would have just been the leader of the show. Yes, you still need a lot of impact with that, but you could have put anyone in there.
Well, she was
I feel
undoubtedly the reason.
I feel that was a Disney exec thing. That wasn't like Favreau and Filoni saying, "Oh, this is a great character to build a story around." I think that was they saw the hype around her when she was before all this shit happened, and they're like, let's capitalize.
But
Spin-off.
what
Let's do this.
was peculiar is like you mentioned this hype around her. I don't think she was a liked character in season 1. I wouldn't say she was the most popular in season 1. But when season 2 rolled around, the people that loved Cara Dune are not the people that Disney wants to cater to. And I'm not saying that as like my bias. Like Disney has a leaning, and they would have not leaned towards the fans of Cara Dune or Gina Carano, that is. And then a lot of people hated Gina Carano too before she was fired because of all the beep bop boop stuff. So that's an interesting point that you said you think it was an executive decision. I wonder how much, like, you think Book of Boba Fett was an executive decision over Filoni and Favreau's choice?
I think that
probably
was a mixed
not.
bag. To me, having
they have a lot of freedom, don't they? I mean, Favreau and Filoni are cute.
Rodriguez was the worst choice to do that. It was
You need to watch the Spy Kids movies because they're great. And Rodriguez made
they're movies.
They're great movies.
Yeah, they're you can watch them. They're there. It's available to watch. Sure.
Take an edible or two. They're fantastic.
I just don't think Robert is the best director in the world. Clearly,
no. I've even said that his Boba Fett episode of Mando season 2 was it. Yeah, I even said from the get go, I'm like, okay, it's a cool episode, but it didn't look that good.
Oh, it looked horrible. It looked really bad. I don't know why.
I'm sorry, Lunga. I said it looked like a fan film. I know you hate when I say that, but
oh my God.
I mean,
maybe I'm right this
the
time.
best directors so far out of this whole Mandoverse thing have been Bryce Dallas Howard and Fumiyawa. Those are the two that I felt have been the best ones.
Well, and some people have given Rick Famuyiwa like crap for the last episode of Ahsoka because they were like, "Oh, it wasn't the best directed episode, and he's supposed to be like this well renowned." I'm like, well, I go back to saying like that's probably the writing, isn't it? Like the directing doesn't really have too much.
It's hard to pinpoint because you've got the production.
Can fix bad writing. A good director can fix that. They can make changes on the fly. They
but you can't fix bad plots
the way
and
something is
storylines.
said. You'd be surprised. Good directors can do a lot.
I think in a show though, in a series, the showrunner in this case, I don't know if showrunner was Dave Filoni's official title, but he probably was. Showrunner has a more influence than a director does in terms of. I feel like a director has more influence for movies than they do shows. So I don't know how much freedom Famuyiwa would have had to change Filoni's.
Depends on the structure. Yeah, like Ahsoka, especially Ahsoka, that's his baby. So no, he's going to be like Feige over Ahsoka. He's
there every day on set. I mean,
yeah,
absolutely.
And this is why it doesn't matter when people say Rian Johnson directed the best episode of Breaking Bad because he didn't write it, so it doesn't really matter, right?
Those are just shills like me who want to parade Rian Johnson. Like, yeah, he
because
directed a great episode. It's Vince Gilligan. That was his masterpiece.
And because I hate him so much, I give him crap for The Fly, even though he didn't write The Fly. He just directed it.
He's just a hypocritical.
Problems you had a thought you wanted to share before. I'm sorry.
No, I forgot. So I was going to say with Rick, I don't think the problem itself was the directing, but more the production issues. I don't think the director has the fault of some of the poor choreography that did go on throughout that last episode. The zombies part, looking back on it, rewatching it. Okay, I do look back. I'm like, okay, that looked pretty bad. I don't think that's the fault of Rick, but more just a fault of poor production, which you can say has some fault on the director, but I think it's more so other things.
The camera movement is definitely him, like that wide.
Well, okay, the cinematography, the shots of Balin at the end were gorgeous. The shot of Shin igniting her saber to those marauders, gorgeous. You know,
Ahsoka and Sabine on top of the ship was good.
Yeah, so I think when it comes to action, it's really hard to pinpoint if it's the director's fault, except for when it's The Last Jedi in the throne room. We'll all blame Rian Johnson for that. So
great scene.
So I mean,
Johnson made the most beautiful, awe-inspiring piece of turd anyone's ever seen.
Hey man, I like a lot of The Last Jedi.
You can't say it's not one of the best directed Star Wars movies that there is. I mean,
if you say it's not, you're straight up lying to yourself.
I got a lot of
Irvin Kershner.
I got a lot of shit for this on Twitter, because we were talking about directors, and I was like, J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson are arguably two of the best directors Star Wars has had. I don't think.
Thank you.
I still think Rian Johnson is a great writer, but
that's an odd argument to make because there's like 5 people who've directed Star Wars movies. There's George Lucas, Richard Marquand, Irvin Kershner, Rian Johnson, J.J. Abrams, Ron Howard, and Tony Gilroy barely even get credit because they came in halfway through.
Here's the problem. it's like Christopher Nolan. Okay, well, Christopher Nolan did okay with Batman, but Abrams and Johnson are the type of directors that are meant to direct their own creations. Do you get what I'm saying?
Especially
They're
Ryan
not
Johnson.
meant to create. They're not meant to direct a legacy IP unless all they're doing is directing. Right? There's a showrunner. There's
I think that's what he's saying is the directing is.
Yeah.
Well, with J.J. Abrams, that's a big one because he did the didn't he do like a reboot for Star Trek and another
rebooted
for
Star Trek?
Wars?
He made arguably one of the best Mission Impossible movies, Mission Impossible 3. His own creations, Lost and Super 8, are very, very much loved by a lot of people. So I actually agree with that.
I like the Kelvin Timeline ones. They were really well. I enjoyed them, and a lot of Star Trek fans hated them, but I liked it.
And also the problems with the sequels go beyond just the directors. There was a lot of meddling done with those movies. So it's really hard to be like, oh, JJ sucks, or Ryan sucks, or whatever.
Hold on.
Are you straying too far off topic here?
Hold on.
We're getting way off.
I gotta say this last thing. I will throw a couple memes a bone. With JJ, there was a lot of meddling. I know there was a lot of things he wanted to do a certain way, and then they didn't want to. And he was only supposed to do the first movie because he said, "I'm only doing the first one. I start things, I don't know how to finish them." And you guys, that's why he made this generic, reskin of A New Hope. And it's like, okay, then you guys figure it out. And then Johnson pissed everybody off, right? Except Kathleen Kennedy, she loved him. But with Johnson, sorry, there was no meddling. Okay, Kathleen Kennedy literally said, "Here you go. Yours. Do whatever the fuck you want with it. No one is going to tell you no." And that's what happened. So you cannot even throw any of the problems because he was given carte blanche to do whatever the fuck he wanted. And that's what we got.
I will give you that. Yeah. I want to point out real quick, just real quick. One last thing. I finally found the quote where Mark Hamill revealed what the original filming ending was for The Force Awakens, which was film that JJ had in mind, which was instead of Luke staring on the edge, Luke is floating and meditating with boulders around him floating around. And I remember a long time ago we talked about this and we were like, well, where's the source? Well, guess what, fuckers? I found the source, okay?
Yeah. So, and he had to change it because they had to call. He's like, this is not what's happening.
He called Ryan Johnson and Ryan. It was a big mess. Yeah.
Right.
But anyway,
don't
worry about it.
I've got an Ahsoka question. I've got a question. I want to hear your guys' least favorite episode and your favorite episode.
I will say my favorite is episode 4. I think that one was really, really good. I think that's like I've said before, like that's one of the best Star Wars episodes you'll see in live action. Least favorite is probably episode 1. Episode 1 was really cringe. Just like rewatching it and everything, I was like, God, I understand why people didn't really like keep going with the series as like a casual audience probably would, because God, man, I mean, there's just a lot of like cringy little moments where I was like, I feel like I'm watching that scene in Book of Boba Fett where the kid's on the speed bikes again. Seeing Sabine do the whole like, yeah, I'm cool, and I'm listening to this cringe fucking
shut the
pop song. It was cringe. I'm sorry if you like it.
It was not cringe. Just because she has a different taste in music doesn't make it cringe.
No, it's not the music. It's her like about to run into a motherfucker, and the guy's like, "Oh, is she gonna slow down? Is she not? Is she gonna hit? Is she not? Is she?" And then she just goes out. There's a highway that just leads directly to her house for no reason at all. It's just, I don't know. That first episode, everything about it, I really did not like. But episode 4 and mainly episode 6 as well, great. Everything else cringe.
Lunga?
I would say episode 2 was my least favorite. Because unlike only, I wasn't put off by 1. I'm like, oh, this is a good start. This is I'm okay with the start. And then 2 kind of dragged on for me. And you know, we got them together, so I thought I was going to get a more good picture. And it's like 2 just kind of dragged on, and I'm like, we all got sidetracked with the whole Merrick thing. You know, what's going on with him, and everyone kind of zoned in on that, and it was so 2 kind of dragged on for me. It didn't really do much for me total. Favorite? See, I have a hard time with that because again, I like overall story. You know what I mean? But if I have to, and this is where we just become right Memberberry fans, right? I'm not like you, couple memes, but I gotta tell you,
he's got the disclaimer.
Episode 5 was fun, man. I'm sorry, it was fucking fun. Okay, it was fun to watch. It was, and that's why people don't fucking understand when I say Anakin at the end was pointless and not needed was because episode 5 was so fucking good. You didn't need that, okay? It was unnecessary. But 5 and honorable mention right after it, close to 6.
All right. Mine was easily 4. I think 4 is one of the best episodes of Star Wars TV. I just thought everything about it was probably the closest episode to perfect that we've had with the Mandoverse. I think a few episodes of Mandalorian are better, but this was one of the best episodes of Star Wars TV. It was just wonderfully paced. There was gripping tension. I thought there was some really interesting character decisions that were made. We learned probably the most about Baylan at that point. I love the moment with Sabine giving away giving the map. Great moments with Ahsoka. I just have no criticisms of episode 4. I know some people are going to bring up the choreography. I don't care. I thought it was all great. Least favorite, I'd probably go with episode 2 with Lunga. Because I'm with Lunga on that. They focused a lot on like the people on Corellia about, and that one guy is like, oh, you don't have clearance or whatever. And then a lot of them turned out to be working for the Empire anyway. And that didn't kind of go anywhere because the whole stuff with the New Republic was about Thrawn, not about these people on Corellia. So that didn't really go anywhere.
They were bouncing off of what we saw in Andor, but just it's way later. You know what I mean? It's like a bookend of each other kind of deal.
Yeah. So yeah, I'd probably go with episode 2. The whole Corellia stuff was just like something that needed to happen. It didn't advance the story of Ahsoka and Sabine all that much.
Yeah, they kind of wrapped it up with the Coruscant scene at the end of the season there, where they were like, "Oh, Imperial remnants, whatever that term is," and they kind of just brushed it aside. For me, I'll start with my least favorite, episode 3. It's just simply my least favorite. I don't hate the episode. I like the training with Sabine and He Yang. I thought that was really cool to see. It was good. It was a cool episode. You saw the space whales up close in action. It was a fine episode. I don't hate it, but for me, it almost felt like as close as you can get to a wasteful episode in the sense that the episode was only 30 minutes long, and I genuinely feel like they could have cut it down, put what happened in that episode in front of episode 4. Again, I didn't hate it, but when it comes to my rewatch, I'm like, wow, this wasn't. And I can see a lot of casual audience members maybe sticking around for episode 3, and it just doesn't go as much as where I think the story should have gone. My favorite episode is, to all of you guys' surprise, going to be episode 4. Episode 5 is the one that I've rewatched the most for a variety of reasons, including the ending. I think the end scene in that episode is beautiful and probably my favorite part of the episode, where the space whales come out. But episode 4, I mean, you guys kind of have said it all. The tension, the pacing. I thought the choreography and the lightsaber fights was awesome. I thought it was great. Sabine going along with Baylan was awesome. Shin force choking Sabine, and then Baylan having to kind of yell at her to stop. That was awesome too.
I think my view of 4 is a little jaded because we still need to see what's happening with Baylan and Shin. You know what I mean? And episode 4 was it was kind of Baylan and Shin heavy, and it was like one of the episodes that was really building up like what's going on with these two.
It built up the idea where we were like, okay, are they a dark Jedi? And that episode really is where that question came out. Oh, I think these guys are dark Jedi, because we hear in episode 3, I think it is, where he's like, to kill Ahsoka would just be a shame, because there's so few left. And so that kind of started, and then episode 4 definitely brought that question up.
Yeah. Actually, I want to look at this comment real quick because Goldman brought up choreography, and I know you had a lot of issues with choreography, Pelpa memes, and because she kind of mentioned the comment. I think people need to lay off Rosario when it comes to the sword style. I practice various stick and blade arts as a 40-year-old person. It's hard learning from scratch. From Bobby Coltrane. Thank you, Bobby Coltrane. Honestly, she talked about it earlier when they were, or no, it wasn't her. It was the whole Netflix anime one, Cowboy Bebop, where they were complaining about her outfit, Valentine's outfit. I don't even want to kind of notice. It felt like a Michael Keaton and Batman thing with her. That headdress, it seemed like she really, you know what I mean? So,
well, they talked about that in Mandalorian, why they shortened it.
Her head is very stiff while she's doing the movements, which limits how fast you can move. You know what I mean? And I really think that was a big, and let's be fair, I don't think all of it was Rosario. I think there's a lot of stunt person too, wasn't it? I don't think it was all Rosario the whole time doing it too. But I think that headdress, that headgear that they had to put on her, I think that limited a lot of the motion. And,
Well,
I think that's part of the issue.
I think that, and I also believe that the lightsaber props they do use, plenty of actors have come out and said this. They're heavy. They're like the Force FX ones or the NeoPixel ones that you can buy. They basically use that same technology, and while the benefit of that is it forms a natural light wherever it's at, they're heavy, and so that also limits how fast you can twirl, etc., etc. So I don't think it's just Rosario. I think
Oh,
sure,
some
okay,
dumbbells. Shut up. I don't want to hear that shit. Oh, they're so heavy.
Yeah, that's not.
What are they? 5 pounds
That's a
instead of 3?
non-factor.
Get out of here.
Okay. Let me the prequel trilogy that everyone compares them to. Everyone likes to compare them to the prequel fights, right? Which I like. They use ultra light, very thin, exactly, right? So they could twirl them as fast as as fast as possible. This is a lot different, but I do think they might need to look into lightening them up.
I will give Palpatine some props, because one thing I remember watching the behind the scenes stuff of all the sequels, and I can't speak for The Last Jedi, but one thing they mentioned specifically with The Force Awakens was that they wanted to make the lightsabers feel heavy, because back then they were all anti-prequels, so they wanted
people
to make
hated
it feel
it.
heavy.
Exactly.
And then when they got to The Rise of Skywalker, they made the lightsabers noticeably lighter for them. If you just notice the sword fights, the speed in which the Rise of Skywalker one is much quicker than in Force Awakens. So they are capable of making them lighter. I don't know how heavy they are in these shows.
Well,
but
the Rise of Skywalker fight, you can watch it. It's not what they used in The Force Awakens. It's actually just a white.
Are we forgetting what Morgan Elsbeth did in the last episode? Get out of here.
I'm not saying
choreography is not like really an issue. I mean, I understand like, okay, yes, if it's heavier and everything, but if that's the case, that's been like a Disney thing, and that's been going on for what, like 8-7 years now that they've been using these same kind of lightsabers. If it was really a problem, they would fix it.
And then,
okay, I mean, it's
well, they did
Yeah.
partially
You
fix
could
it by
figure out
shortening
these
them.
very easily. If the whole reason for it is because it gives you the natural glow without having to add it all in CGI, which is a lot of time. It's time intensive to do all that.
They just didn't do it in the
figure out lighting and
prequels.
shadows. You could listen.
Yeah.
You could make a bare bones light version with a NeoPixel in there, and then fill in the handle stuff later or whatever. You could. They could figure it out, like Only said. Let's not act like they can't figure out how to make it lighter if they want.
And people in the saber community have made like lightsabers that are. And this is such a side tangent, anyways. But they have made like very light and durable lightsaber blades that are polycarbonate. Like these things are bulletproof glass that are meant to be beaten. You don't need to add the soundboard and everything. So like, look, Disney's making these. How heavy can they really be? I'm sorry. I'm sure all of us have played with these little fucking lightsabers, realistic ones, plastic ones, whatever before.
Oh, I could do it better.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, I'm sure we all could. But like the choreography, the hardest thing about that is the physical aspect, is actually doing the choreography. You don't need to be training for 30 years to be good with a sword or anything, because they teach you how to do this. They train with you days out of the week, and for months on end, they give you a physical regimen.
They did it in the prequels.
Yeah, yes, they did, but they also did it for these new series. I highly doubt Rosario Dawson just showed up to set one day and they're like, all right, here's a lightsaber and here's how you're going to fight. No, they gave her a routine to start building up with and everything. They talked about this with Rey in the sequel trilogy, and that did not have a lot of high-end choreography, at least compared to what we saw in Ahsoka.
There were a couple super chats you missed, by the way. I think the first you weren't. Is when you weren't talking.
Yeah, I was gone. What do you guys think about the news that Disney might be thinking about buying EA?
I haven't heard about that.
Oh God! I think they said Robert Iger or Bob Iger, whatever the fuck, is like non-committal to it.
It's not they want. It was a clickbait headline. It's not that they want to buy EA, but Bob is wanting to invest more in a gaming enterprise when it comes to Disney. Right? Disney already makes some of their games, but it's very little. They don't put a lot of work into them, and so they branch out.
He brought up though, because they said 10 years ago the whole reason they were doing EA's deal is because they didn't know how to make video games. So now 10 years later,
now they want to
learn. That's why in that quote, or what, maybe not a quote, but what they said is one of his things was potentially buying EA. So it's not like he's sorting out to buy EA. It's just it was an idea that he had with this idea of building up Disney's gaming enterprise.
Because Iger is the buy everything guy, right? That's what he did. His whole term at Disney was buy up all these.
They can't buy anything now. The stock has tanked, and they're talking about selling assets now because they don't know what to do anymore.
A short-term fix for stock prices is to spend money. If you buy something, it will raise your stock price. It's a short-term thing, it's not long-term, but it does give you a quarterly boost or bump, if you will. Here, there was another super chat as well from Darth Watts. I'm also a Star Wars content creator on YouTube, and my favorite episode of Ahsoka is episode 5. Thank you, Darth
More than
Watts.
fair. More than fair.
You people and your member berries.
I like the Ahsoka
I
arc.
just want to make Lunga mad.
That's making me mad.
Right. Well, Lunga's favorite episode is the Member episode.
Exactly, because we all loved Member. Remember the series Ahsoka that just came out? Can you guys tell me what your favorite little story or arc, like at least in terms of like character, and your least favorite? Because I feel like we're looking at it, there's so much interest and intrigue around Balin, and then we have Hera, who we've all kind of unanimously said like it's probably the weakest arc of the entire series.
Well, I mean, she was, but she wasn't. Again, she wasn't a big enough part of the series to call it an arc. She was filling in what's happening on the other side of stuff. That's why I have a hard time with that. So, Hera's arc sucked. She didn't have an arc. She was a supporting.
No, her as a character didn't, but there was a plot line that she was heavily involved in, and that's why, like looking at the series, right. It's like there's interesting ones.
Has
like
nothing to do with Ahsoka. It has to lead into what's happening. Let me rephrase that. It has nothing to do with this season of Ahsoka. It's setting up plot points we're going to get in second season and possible future plot points in a movie or other stuff that's happening. It's that foreshadowing of other stuff that's coming. So in this, if we keep compartmentalizing shit and to this season, what did it mean? Again, there's macro points and there's micro points, right? And hers is a macro one. It has to do with an overarching story rather than integral to this season. Okay, so if you look at it from that standpoint, it's not that big of a deal for me. However, Balin and Shin were integral to this season, and they were very compelling. And for the first half of the season, they were kind of most people's favorite parts of the series. And then it kind of kept dragging on, and then we didn't see them, and then they just show up at the very end, and we don't know what's happening. Which, again, I understand, like when you guys say that, those threads were out there and it wasn't very satisfying. I get it. I'm not going to say what's wrong with you. Why don't you see it like I do? It doesn't make sense. But the issue here is what are they going to do with them going forward? And I think that's the important part. And I think that's going to matter more later. And then now we had it before the season premiered. The Ray Stevenson question. What are they going to do? There's people talking about, are they going to do what they've done with everybody else and just digitally recreate like they've done with everybody else? And it's like, I've seen it. Listen, I've seen enough of that with Leia and Luke, and I don't need. The man just died. Okay, just recast. A white guy with a beard that's 6 foot tall is not that hard to find. You can recast. Now, his acting chops are great. Replacing his acting is not as easy. I'll give it that. Okay, but Balin didn't have a ton of lines either. They were just impactful lines.
Well, that is an important question, though. Do you guys want him to be recasted, the character of Balin, or do you guys think
100%?
Of course.
Okay. There's a lot of people saying that they aren't going to do it and just continue with his story in another way, like books,
like a book, or no? Because I think Dave Filoni has something he wants to share. I feel like Dave Filoni is. He wants to bring this to the big screen. I mean, it's going to get recasted.
That was the cliffhanger. Again, people saying it's not a cliffhanger. That was the cliffhanger. That was what's supposed to hook you for season 2. Was Balin standing on top of the father's finger? That was it, guys. That was the big fucking deal. So they can't just not do anything or continue it in books and shit. No, it's integral to what's going to be happening on Peridia with them next season. And it's this other underlying plot that's an overarching plot, I should say, that I think is going to be the more of the menace than Thrawn is. You know what I mean?
Maybe when it comes to the Jedi, but maybe not the galaxy as a whole.
Oh, dead air. What the hell? Sorry, I didn't unmute my mic. I was going to say that.
I wasn't going to fill it. I was going to wait for you to do it.
Sorry. Yeah, it started raining, so I muted my mic for a second. All right, so when it comes to like season 2, though, the way that it apparently hasn't been confirmed, and we have like the ending of this first season. Do you guys think like if you have an option of following up the series, do you really think it's going to be season 2? Or there's been some people pushing out the idea that this is actually just going to lead up to the movie that Dave Filoni's doing? Because I feel like the movie, there's not enough interest in the show so far to follow this up with a big Mandoverse movie. I feel like you have to do a season 2 to continue to build up, because right now, if you just do a Dave Filoni movie, it's so disjointed, you know?
I think the movie.
Are we forgetting the fact that it's not like that is on the horizon, right? I mean, probably means he's talking about it because it's his favorite thing. The Rey movie is the closest thing we have to a new movie.
That's very true.
I mean, a Mandoverse movie, I mean, minimum, I'm going to say 3 to 4 years. And
At minimum, I say late 2026, but Rey's movie could take that 2026 spot, right?
Yeah.
There's 2 2026 movies as of right now, at least.
You can't do the season and then wait 4
Those-
years.
Those dates of the 2026 movies are dates for shareholders. Never, I mean, very rarely are those set in stone. Those are just
I mean, good. I'd prefer if they went back to every December, just one a year.
Oh, December, I think. I mean, yeah, I really think December is the way, the place that Star Wars movies need to release at. I mean, there's just something special.
Stockholders don't even ask, like, if that slot isn't filled with a Star Wars movie. Remember, it's owned Lucasfilm. It's owned by Disney. Okay, if Disney fills that slot with another movie that will bring the stockholders money, they don't care.
No. They're not asking questions. Who's it about?
Right.
I have a question. Because right now we all talk about this Filoni movie. Like, this is all going to lead into a Filoni movie. Do we think that we assume this is going to be the climax of the Mandoverse? Do we think that there's just going to be one movie to do it, or do you think they're going to do maybe a trilogy or a duology or something else?
Movie.
Or they're going to do more than one movie to wrap this up?
If they gave him like a trilogy, I mean, oh my god, like that's
that
a
would be
lot of commitment on him. And this does feel like something that can be wrapped up in like one solid good movie. And I think this, especially with The Mandalorian, you just need a movie. You need one good movie to kind of wrap it up and everything.
Yeah,
because
it can't be a 90-minute movie. It had to be like 2.5 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Well, even then, but like, could you imagine if like we get Mandalorian season 4, we get a movie after that, maybe a year or two, no Mandalorian until then. They do a movie and it brings everybody together, Boba, Ahsoka, Mando, and then after that, like Mando season 5 comes out. So like stuff that would feel weird, you know?
I don't think they would do that. I think they would do like all the shows and then Mando movie 1, Mando movie 2, Mando movie 3, and that's it. And they don't all have to be Dave Filoni. They could be like
they need to be Jon
multiple
Favreau.
directors with one plan.
If they're doing Mando trilogy, I want Jon Favreau. I do not want Dave Filoni.
I gotta be honest with you. I honestly feel that there won't the last season of Mando where the show's done will take place before the movie comes out. There won't be another season after that. I think Mando will end with that movie.
I want to bring
like they're wrapping up the story.
I've got
I mean, when
different
it
point.
He might appear in other things later or whatever, but yeah.
Okay, so my point of view is it really could go either way when it comes to, is there going to be more Mando after the movie, or is there going to be 2 movies, 3 movies? Lucasfilm and Disney are very reactive instead of proactive, right? I don't think any of us believe there were supposed to be as many Mandalorian seasons as there are, but because of how much of a hit and success Mandalorian was, they're like, okay, keep it going. If Dave Filoni's movie comes out and it's an absolute $2 billion success, there's a good chance they're going to give him another movie. There's a high chance they will, or at least they're going to give him more shows to do following that movie.
Well, I mean, there's tons of storylines. He can still do more and not be this. You know, I mean,
we're asking is that, I mean, yeah, I guess if you're saying the storyline of heir to the empire, so and so is going to be wrapped up in one movie, yeah, more than likely, right? But I can see him if it is a huge success.
Duologies, like Goldman said, I think those, even if you don't do a trilogy, I think a 2-parter. Because how they ended, you know, certain thing, like how they ended Harry Potter as a 2-part movie.
Well, that's what they were doing with the Kenobi movie. It was supposed to, it was originally a trilogy, got dumbed down to a duology, and then the show.
God, can you imagine if they did a trilogy for that freaking one character? There's limits.
Have you read the premise of the writer, what he was pitching, what it was going to be about? I mean, there's a lot there.
I mean, I did for when it was like one movie, but not a trilogy.
Yeah, you can find it. I think it's only his first 2. I don't think there's the trilogy what it would have been.
No,
but I think it's safe to say we assume at some point in the future they're going to do, whether it be a trilogy or not, a series of movies that are intertwined. Like right now, the 3 movies they have announced, they're all just one movie: the Rey movie, the Mando movie, and the Dawn of the Jedi.
Very disconnected.
Of those 3. Which do you think is more likely to get a sequel or get a continuation of that story on the big screen?
Easily. Ray's movie
Great.
easily, no doubt in my
I
mind.
don't know. I was gonna
Ray's
lean
movie
towards like the
depends on
Dawn
if
of the
Kathleen
Jedi
Kennedy
and
sticks
everything.
around.
Yeah, and I
True.
think the box office is a big thing too, because if the Dawn of the Jedi one does really good, people might want to follow those characters for a trilogy. We've already seen Rey's story, like you
Well,
want to
that's the
give her
problem.
you want to give her 3 more films. You know how
Well,
many you know how many people you're gonna piss off?
No,
that you
they
give this
gotta
girl 6
because they
movies.
missed the point. They're like, we never gave him a new Jedi Order. We have to. No, you motherfuckers, you had it with Luke. You decided to fuck it all up,
Yes,
and now
yes.
you're still on. We have to give him a new Jedi Order, and all we have left is Rey. So
And people like you and me are going to be constantly like salty, where it's like, no, I don't want it with this. I wanted it back then, and now you're giving it to me with this new person. I'm good. You keep
right.
it, motherfucker.
And people don't get it's like and this when they listen. There are the assholes out there who hate the women and just hate Rey, right? They just fucking hate Rey. And I know I'm hyperbolic when I pick on you guys about Rey. I thought the Rey character could have been a great fucking character, and there were moments of brightness in the movies. Just the way they wrote her and the situations they put her in were not conducive. And I'd be more open to it. I'd be more open to, even if they change the whole thing and say Luke doesn't really create the Jedi, she doesn't. I'd be more open to it if Luke was more integral in the movies and more integral to the outcome of the movies and more integral into her training. Then I would have been okay with her continuing it. You get what I'm saying? They just didn't do it right for me. So it's not that I hate the character, it's I hate the fucking writers because they fucked her up. That's the problem.
Well, I know a lot of Rey fans. I think I don't want to speak for Goldman, but I agree. Yeah, the writing for Rey is very much all over the place. There's really no denying that, right? I think the potential is still there for her to be loved by a lot of the fan base who don't like her. I'm not talking.
Damn, he dipped
Goodbye.
out like a bad habit.
Goodbye.
Holy shit.
Goodbye.
God.
Goodbye.
It seems like he did that intentionally. Holy shit.
I'm gonna pretend I kicked him because I was getting tired of his bullshit.
Okay, we'll go with that. Technical difficulties always. I don't think we've had a stream without technical difficulties. So to get back to Ahsoka and to kind of wrap up the show, hopefully Palpatine's is back by the time we're getting this all gone. Oh, there he is. Speaking of the devil, and he shall appear. Let's talk about giving our final reviews for the entire series.
You got a timeout. You got a timeout because you're talking too much Rey.
Hey, put me back in my bottom right corner. I like it there.
I am.
Yeah, put me a place above. Yeah, sorry. You guys talked to me earlier. Talk more. Bring in more conversation. Well, here you are.
Then you leave.
All I'm going to talk about.
let's do the round table of all episodes 1 through 8. What do you think of the entire series as a whole? What rating would you give it? And what is your overall consensus now that we're done with everything?
Solid. I still like Andor better. But this is where I have to separate things. I like Andor better because it was just a extremely well-written, solid, emotional plot, okay, and story. So that's why I think it's better. Ahsoka, I like the continuing of a new story being told element of it, okay, a new lore being added, whereas Andor is kind of not lore, it's kind of filling in part of the story. This is more expanding new lore, and we're getting this tease of this other power, this Jedi call. So there's a lot of cool elements there for me, and I thought it set it up well, even though that we all have our nitpicks and problems with how they did it. So I think it did the job it should have done. I think it could have been better. I thought this had the potential to be an overall 8.5, but it landed in the 6.95 7 area.
You don't want to give it a 6, but 7 is too adequate.
Yeah. It's above Kenobi, even though I thought I did like Kenobi a lot too. But it's above Kenobi. Boba Fett is still at the bottom of the fucking list. It's never getting out of that base.
That we agree on, Lunga.
All right, Goldman, hit us.
So I share some sentiments with Lunga. Where the season left off and the promise of what's to come really excites me because we've kind of lacked that for a while. The Mandalorian seasons, while the early ones were great, there wasn't much of a I guess, direction for the universe in that era. Like when Mando season 1 ended, we're like, okay, Mando is gonna go find a Jedi. What's next? Mando season 2 ended pretty conclusively, and then Boba Fett didn't promise anything. Mando season 3 didn't promise anything. So Ahsoka is finally promising more to this era of Star Wars, and the decisions they made to end the season, like in terms of a plot point wise, I don't mind at all. I'm curious to see where Balin's going to go. I'm curious to see what they do with Ahsoka and Sabine. I'm curious to see how Mando will tie into Thrawn and all that. So where this series succeeded for me is getting me excited about future projects. Like when Ahsoka was coming out, I was looking forward to it, but I wouldn't say I was excited. Now they've earned my excitement going forward. When it comes to the actual quality of the season, I would go with a 7. For me, a 7 is mostly good, but with some serious flaws. And that's how I feel. I feel a lot of the execution of the season could have been much better, especially with the character arcs of Ahsoka and Sabine. But at the end of the day, I liked their arcs. I liked the big picture of it. I just didn't like how it was executed. And I will always prefer a story that tried to tell something that I like, but kind of failed, as opposed to a story that didn't try to tell anything or told a shit story. And to me, Ahsoka told a story that I liked. I just wish it was done a little better. And that's why for me, it's a 7.
You perfectly explained how I felt about The Last Jedi.
But you hate that movie.
Damn.
The second half of what you said. You said you would rather them tell a story I like and fail than succeed at telling a story I didn't like. That's what The Last Jedi did.
What, succeeded at telling a story you didn't like?
Yes.
Oh, well, I love this. I love that movie. So anyway, Palpa memes.
Ahsoka, definitely, I think I can say for sure Ahsoka takes my number 1 spot in my ranking of the Star Wars shows. Ahsoka has a story that I love, but it's not without its flaws, right? Which we've talked about. I think once season 2 comes out and they will continue this Peridia and this power story, we're going to look back at season 1 and be like, okay, maybe give it a higher ranking. I'm going to talk about Andor as well, specifically because Lunga brought it up. Andor is phenomenally written. Andor made me root for the little guys. It made me want to rise up against some, empire, right? Ahsoka made me wish I was living in a different galaxy, right? With the Force. Ahsoka brought that mysticality and I guess the foundational roots of Star Wars. I hate using that term because Star Wars is way more than just the Force and the Jedi and the Sith. It's grown so far beyond that, but the foundational roots are with that. And Ahsoka brought all those back, which, we haven't really seen in full for a long time now.
All you gotta do that is one little word. It brought back the foundational mystical roots of Star Wars.
There it is. What made Star Wars so special? That's not just a political sci-fi generic drama, right? It's that mysticality, and Ahsoka had all of that. As for a rating, I still want to stick. I agree with Goldman. I still want to stick with my 7 out of 10. The flaws are certainly there, but at the end of the day, I look back and rewatch this, and I'm like, there's not really many story decisions that upset me, right? And that's rare for me to say when it comes to Star Wars. Even the movies I like, even the sequel trilogy, there's a lot of things where I'm like, really? Why did they do that? Ahsoka didn't have any of that. It's just it had a good story that wasn't executed perfectly all the time. So I think it's a 7 out of 10.
As no surprise, I'm probably going to give this a lower scoring than all of you, but not in like a negative sense of like, oh, I really dislike this series. I can't believe you give it over Mando or even Andor. Like that does kind of
Mando season 3 really, really hurt my.
It's insane that like Goldman, you're guilty of this too. I think of like you guys take that and then like you let it skew the rating for like Mandalorian season.
No, because I'm not rating. I'm just saying in terms of my favorite show, right? If we're talking individual seasons, I think season 2 of Mandalorian it comes close to Ahsoka.
I kind of view sorry to interrupt. I kind of view the Disney Plus Star Wars as like each individual season as opposed to the Mandalorian as a whole. Like I can't say the Mandalorian is a 6. Like I say season 1's a 9, season 2's a 9, season 3's like a 3. So that's just how I view it.
Oh my god.
Yeah, but that was a huge drop.
Shit.
I hate season 4.
I have like 1 and 2 as 9, and I have season 3 at like a 6.
Yeah, that's probably what I would.
Jesus.
I hate season
I think
3.
it's a 10 out of 10. Like, I think people forget just how good those first 2 seasons really are. And
I don't.
I think the reason is like the third one is so jarringly different and paced different that people look at it in a very negative connotation. But back to like Ahsoka, I don't think it's worse than any of the Mandalorians. Well, no, it is worse than Mandalorian stuff. I don't think it's better than anything with Mandalorian. I don't think it's better than Andor.
Season 3?
I mean, it's not. Season 3 is better made. I mean, storyline. I mean, what do you mean? Don't give me that. Come on.
Storyline.
No, I'm giving you that. Come on.
The Jack Black and Lizzo thing. Yes, it's not that great, but still, like when I look at Ahsoka as like the
Moff Gideon thing. I mean, come on, dude.
Yes, a lot, but yet again, you guys are just we're just doing season by season and stuff. You want to add the Clone Wars into it and go through all 7.
No, I'm talking about the 7 live action Star Wars shows. We should rank them honestly. If we
should. That's a show that
would be a good show.
In the future. But with Ahsoka, to me it is below Mandalorian. It is below Andor. I think it's above Book of Boba. It's above Kenobi.
But wait,
no,
see,
there's no way.
The unfairness comes in because you had 3 seasons of Mandalorian, and this is a show that's going to continue. So it's unfair to say Mandalorian as a whole, this whole story we've gotten over 3 seasons is better than this 1 season of Ahsoka.
Well, I think
how is it fair for Pablo memes to be like, okay, well, this 1 season of Ahsoka is better than all 3 of the Mandalorian?
I did not say that. I said on my ranking, I think I like Ahsoka more than the Mandalorian, really because of the way the Mandalorian story went, right?
And he did say a lot of it still hinges on what we're going to see coming.
That as well.
I'm not going to shit on Star Wars. I get it.
That's not how this works, though. I can't be like, oh, the third. This is what people do with the prequels. Of like, oh, the prequels aren't that bad. Well, why is that? Because Revenge of the Sith is so good. It's like, no, 1 and 2 still fucking suck. Like,
you don't make the rules. I'm the oldest one here.
No, I am. You don't make the rules. All right. I am the one who fucking knocks.
I agree. I get where you're at. Only I get where you're at.
Okay, thank you. Let my rating for Ahsoka though, at the end of the day, is a 6 out of 10. And I know that's going to sound like, oh my god, that's like a failing grade. No, I don't think it's harsh because when I look at some of these episodes, like 4 and 6, and even 8 in a way, like the Return of Thrawn epic, what they did with episode 4 was beautiful. Like that should have been in a Star Wars movie. I didn't like episode 5 like everyone else does. After rewatching the series, this is one of my big things with any movie or show that you ever have that you kind of give a rating. It's like you have to be able to rewatch it. After rewatching the show, I don't really want to watch it again. There's episodes I want to watch again, like 4 and 6 and even 8 and maybe even 7. But the first part of this story is really not that good. And because of like the Hera and all that stuff and how that does take away from a lot of time in these episodes, a lot of that stuff brings down the series to me in a lot of ways. So yes, it could get better with like a season 2, and I'd be willing to, be happy with a season 2 being far better than season 1. But this entire season really felt like a fucking prologue, like a little title crawl of what we've missed. And it spent so much time like trying to cover ground that just when it gets really interesting, we'll see you in 2 years, So 6 out of 10.
See, and I still can't do it. Like the only long series that I watched completely rewatched again was The Sopranos. Okay, I think we talked about it when I was
God, I love it. I watch that every year.
But here's the thing. You see, here's the thing. I hadn't watched The Sopranos since it ended in what the fuck was it? 2007 or something like that, right?
Oh, it was like 2005.
No, I think it was like 2007 when The Sopranos ended.
Bush was
what's your point?
Yeah, but at any rate, it was over 13 years, 14 years later that I finally watched it because rewatched it because it's been so long that I didn't remember anything. So maybe 15 years from now I'll rewatch Mandalorian. Maybe 15 years from now I'll rewatch some of these other things. But TV shows I can't rewatch like that. I need a long time to pass to where it's like I just remember highlights and it's like, you know what? Let me watch it again because I don't remember everything. And I appreciate it that way when I see it. Movies are different. I can watch movies over and over again because I can get the whole gist, and even though you could say, oh, you could just watch them all back to back. Even when they're back to back, they still feel disjointed. A series. They don't feel like a movie flow for me. So it just I can't do it that way.
And see, I'm psychotic. I'll watch the same show all this. Breaking Bad is my old man show. When I'm 80 and my grandkids come over and they're like, "Oh, what's Grandpa watching?" "Oh, it's Breaking Bad, that bald Walter White." I can watch that. I've watched Dark like 3 times.
Nope.
I'm on my second time of BoJack Horseman.
Yep.
I've seen The Sopranos 3 times. Better Call Saul like
Only
5
watched them
times.
once.
I've watched Rebels 4 times.
That's
Nope.
horrible. That's so horrible for your brain.
Nope.
All that filler. Okay, so I think like overall though, if we add up all our scores and divide by 4, and I don't know what
6.75.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
mid sixes.
6.75. That's not bad.
You skewed the average because us 3 had it at a 7 average.
Hey,
and you decided
I
to
did
come in
that
here-
with our movie ranking when it came to Return of the Jedi because I put it like I don't know if it was last, but
No, you asshole. You put Rise of Skywalker at 2, and that made
put
Last
it
Jedi
so
lower
high.
on our average ranking than Rise of Skywalker, and that pissed me off.
Entire list. Like
I was trolling. We need to we need to redo that list, okay? Opinions have
I don't
changed.
feel like your opinions are really real.
Listen,
I feel like you're just a constant
even if
troll
you
of
had
like
it-
positivity.
It's in my name.
I understand you like the Rise of Skywalker, okay? Even if you had it 4, even though I still think it's crazy, even if you had it 4, how you can have it over any of the original trilogy movies?
Can I say
That is
something?
absolutely-
Can I, Lunga,
Ever
can I-
understand?
I don't
Can
know
I
if
say
you're allowed
something?
to.
It's not even close to there anymore, okay? Can we just
Can
can we still be
So I think
friends? Can
we
we
confirmed
make up?
he has a thing called recency bias. I think in 5 years from now, he's gonna be like, you know what?
I don't know,
Like, you
man.
know what?
I said that a year ago. The movie came out in
I-
2019.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Oh, maybe you're just.
I'm just
well,
psychotic.
that's Matt McFadden says do that list of the shows. That's what we were just talking about. That we need to rank.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah.
The
shows.
7 live action shows, that is, or 7 seasons.
Season by season. I'm cool with that. I agree.
I'm down.
Yeah,
I'm
when I
down
used to
with
do
it.
what the rank show, we did if those shows that had multiple seasons, there's some of that we would rank the seasons, not the overall show.
I agree.
So
All right. Well, now that we've given our rating and all that, that's pretty much it for this show. We'll come back next Wednesday and we'll do an entire review of the Mandalorian season 3 because we missed that.
which I
So-
am not rewatching. You guys have to remind me of everything.
I mean, I think I've seen it maybe twice at this point because I remember watching it when it came out, and then I watched it again like a couple months ago to kind of refresh it. So I'm pretty confident I know most of what happens in that show. I'll look at the synopsis for each episode. But yeah, we'll be back for that next week. Make sure you guys tune in. You guys have any parting words for the people at home? Subscribe to Chatooine. We're almost at 500 followers. Almost there.
Subscribers.
Yeah, we're close.
So, oh, sorry, subscribers. There's subscribers, there's followers, there's I don't know what another word is. What do you call people on X now? Is it still followers?
They are still followers.
Xers?
God, you act like such a boomer, dude. I see you on Twitter all the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
He is
Headphones
a
are
boomer.
dying randomly, and
I'm around, but I don't know what I'm doing. That's pretty much my motto. But all right, guys, thank you all for watching. We will see you next week, and may the force be with you always.
Still live.